great for NBC Sports. One more time, we'll close out the show here with this tonight before we get into one shining moment. But Brandon, I don't know if you got to watch the end of the IndyCar broadcast. I know it's an unfortunate deal that it was conflicting with the Cup Series broadcast at Watkins Glen as well, the same family of networks. But Lee Diffie came back to narrate their final sign-off. This is the end of IndyCar's partnership with NBC Sports for now. We'll see how this next 2 years worth of a deal with Fox Sports goes. Everybody at NBC, I think, wishes Fox nothing but the best. We certainly hope to see them bring the same level of coverage and professionalism that we saw from what began as Versus and turned into NBCSN, and then later NBC, USA, Peacock, CNBC. I think even had a couple of races as well. Brandon, what are you going to remember most from the NBC Sports era of the IndyCar Series?
There's so much, because really fondly with NBC Sports being with IndyCar because of the college program I was blessed to be a part of 5 years ago at IMS, and just kind of being around IMS Productions all month, their crew walking around everywhere, and NBC crew being around, and just having living through that experience for that month of Fernando Alonso's bump and all that stuff through the eyes of NBC, and having Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, and Paul Tracy. That trio will stick in my mind very, very much so. And also, I can just remember, like, it was a couple of years ago that we got the announcement that NBC was going to have the full IndyCar calendar, and that it was crazy that, like, you mean ESPN's not going to have an IndyCar race at all, like Alan Bestwick and all that crew. So that, and here we are in another season of transition. And then I also look over at the Xfinity side. CW starts next weekend, so that's another chapter of NBC Sports and motorsports that's closing for now. Got to remember the professionalism really on the IndyCar side, especially. I think they took that very seriously and were able to keep it as a motorsport and less of a Friday night brawl entertainment thing. Really had kept the conversation around the broadcast. It wasn't hokey, it wasn't corny sometimes, but I think they mainly, when appropriate, they kept the story about the race. And I hope Fox continues to do that. Actually, I really hope Fox continues to do that, because other sides of things that they currently do would prove to me otherwise. But I hope there's a completely different group around it. I hope they keep IMS Productions a part of what they're doing with Fox. And if that's the case, I think we're in for a different taste of IndyCar, but hopefully going to keep the professionalism at the forefront.
Well, I am cautiously optimistic, because I think a lot of people, again, they're having PTSD moments from the NASCAR memories that they have of Fox over the last decade or so, and fearing the same for IndyCar. Regardless, I would say wait and see. But I think that, Brandon, to your point about IMS Productions, I think that they're still going to be very heavily involved here. And again, I don't know that there's going to be as much overlap as people might think here, because again, I try to be equally as critical of the networks when I see it fit here. I also try to give them their flowers when they deserve it as well. And NBC certainly did a great job for many years here. But I think that IndyCar's or NBC's coverage of IndyCar, I think, has been a level above even their NASCAR coverage. I think they've done a tremendous job over the last several years, particularly when they were in friendly competition with ESPN, ABC. And I still remember that last race in Detroit that Ryan Hunter-Reay won after Alexander Rossi, his then teammate at the time, locked his wheels up in the closing laps. And Alan Bestwick is an absolute pro, and I do think Goodyear and Cheever caught a little bit too much flack in the closing years of that run. I think they deserve a lot of credit for the job they did in the booth over the years. But I mean, Bestwick just really signed off and thanked everybody for such a great run for about 20 seconds, and that was it. NBC went out of their way to put that montage together and have Lee Diffie come back. Very fitting, I think, that he got to close it out, even though he stepped away over to the NASCAR booth at the end of this year. So again, I think, a little bit of a messy situation with the transition to Kevin Lee, and not that Kevin Lee did a bad job or anything, but I think maybe kind of threw some IndyCar fans for a loop there. And then unfortunate that they had the schedule conflicts this weekend, but that shouldn't sour the entire I guess 16-year run that they had when they came in as Versus in 2009. Some great people working on those broadcasts and a great team that we're certainly going to miss. Fox, again, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic, but they do have very big shoes to fill taking over for NBC Sports. So we'll look forward to that next year. Hopefully they do a good job.
Some final thoughts about it. Lee Diffie saying, "Let's go." Lee Diffie saying, "It's time to bring the action." The whole trio there, Paul Tracy, Townsend Bell, and Lee Diffie going, "Whoa!" after anything happening. And then also Townsend Bell or PT saying the danger zone. That sticks with me almost every other day.
Yeah, and I think it is going to be interesting. I would not count out perhaps Townsend and Hinch as well, maybe following the series over to Fox Sports. I mean, I don't know what else they would be contractually bound to do over at NBC Sports here. So, we saw it with Steve Matchett and David Hobbs when the F1 rights moved from Speed to NBC in 2013. They just followed, as did Lee Diffie, actually, ironically enough, now that I think about it. That was when he came over to NBC Sports. So I think not entirely out of the question that we could see, and even Kevin Lee, I feel like can be quite the freelancer at times. We'll see who they put together in that booth next year. But again, everybody, from the booth to the production, behind the scenes, a lot of big shoes to fill over that NBC Sports team is leaving Fox next year in 2025. So again, we'll have to wait and see how it goes.
And I got to give praise for Kevin Lee. I mean, just to be put in that position, he did an excellent job with the rest of the year. Whatever critics may say about him, and he's way too intelligent of a journalist to leave behind in this deal. So I hope he does find a proper place.
Yeah, and he had done it plenty of times before, because there was a time where Lee Diffie was also the F1 play-by-play guy, and so he certainly had to fill in for weeks where they conflicted there, and other times where Lee wasn't available. So again, another total pro. Hopefully he lands somewhere and comes out of his deal on the other side.